I'd like to call to order the December 2019 meeting of the Radnor Township Zoning Hearing Board. First order of business, I'd like to invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First appeal for this evening is appeal number 3051. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what I do. The board met in executive session immediately prior to convening the meeting this evening to discuss a matter involving litigation. Now, appeal number 3051, the applicant, Villanova University, property located at 800 East Lancaster Avenue and zoned PI, planned institutional. In 1995, this is one of Nick's notices, I think. In 1995, applicant was granted a variance from the height requirement of the zoning code pursuant to appeal number 2224 for the construction of its Center for Engineering Education and Research building. Applicant seeks a modification of the conditions imposed by appeal number 2224 to permit an addition to the building which will not exceed the height approved by the former appeal. In the alternative, applicant seeks a variance from section 280.969-C of the zoning code regarding height regulations or such other relief consistent with the exhibits and testimony presented at the hearing. Counsel.
Evening, Nick Cornelia representing the applicant Villanova University on this matter. Just way of brief opening. This is on Villanova's main campus. If you look at what has already been marked as A3, you see Lancaster Avenue and Spring Mill Road. The existing Sear Engineering building is located right here in this area. As was mentioned in the application back in 1995, Villanova received relief to construct this Sear Engineering building in this location. Looking at what's been marked as A4, it indicates the existing building, and at that time, Villanova requested relief on the height, requesting that the height be 51 feet, and also requested relief on the front yard setbacks, as the front yard setback was within the front yard of the right-of-way along Spring Mill Road. Both relief was granted. The proposal here this evening is to construct an addition to the Sear building, and you'll hear testimony regarding the need for the Sear building and how engineering and the engineering field has changed in the last 20 years in a matter of instruction as well as research. The proposal is for pulling the addition back so it's not within the front yard setback. It is 128 feet from the right-of-way on Spring Mill Road. The requirement is 125 feet. It does exceed the existing height requirement of 38 feet, but it is no taller than the existing structure that already exists on the property that was granted pursuant to relief back in the 1990s. The first witness would be Bob Morrow. Bob?
I do. Robert Morrow, M-O-R-R-O.
And Bob, what is your profession?
I'm an engineer.
And are you a registered engineer in Pennsylvania?
Yes, I am.
And by whom are you employed?
By Villanova University as the Vice President for Facilities.
And how long have you been employed in that regard?
17 years.
Now, first I'm going to just show you what's been marked as A2. Is this the deed to the main campus of Villanova University?
Yes, it is, from January 1842.
And then we already referred to A3, but if you could tell the board what A3 represents, and in particular locating where the Sear building is located.
Sure. It shows our campus from an aerial view. Lancaster Avenue is at the bottom, and Spring Mill Road diagonally across the top, and the engineering building is in the center.
And as already has been stated, back in 1995, did Villanova receive zoning relief to construct the SEER building, which exceeded the height requirement of the code as well as a setback requirement of the code.
We did. We did receive those 2 variances.
And that variance, which has been marked as A2B in the packet, that indicated that the construction of the building would be in a location, precise locations indicated on the plans, and this was the precise location indicated on the plans.
Yes.
And the proposal here this evening is to construct an addition to this building, since it's not in the precise location as indicated on the plans, an addition that will not exceed the existing height of the building.
That's correct.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A4. And first, as to A4, did you engage Pannoni and Associates to construct a site plan for this particular project?
Yes, we did.
And what's been marked as A4, is this the site plan on the project?
Yes, it is.
And if you can describe to the board first the darkened portion and the light portion and what they represent.
Sure. The light portion is the original structure, closest to Spring Mill Road on this side, and the dark outline shows the proposed addition that will match up with the building we're shown.
And will the addition not exceed the existing height of the existing building?
That's correct.
And looking at the site plan, the existing building, is it correct that it's 72 feet from the right-of-way of Spring Mill Road?
Yes, and the addition would be 128 feet.
And the front yard setback along Spring Mill Road in the institutional district is 125 feet?
Correct.
So we are beyond the front yard setback requirement.
That's correct.
What is the grade of the property in this area?
So it's high at the top. Tollentine is located on the top of this drawing along a ridge, and then it falls off as you get closer to Lancaster Avenue.
Now, I'm just going to show you a couple other exhibits, and then we'll go. And I didn't mention to the board, we will have the architect for the project will testify, as well as the dean of engineering. So if you have questions in those areas, those two will testify and can answer those questions. First, I'm going to show you 2 exhibits, and I'll hand them both up to the board. One has been marked A18 and one has been marked A19, and I believe they should be in here. The larger photograph should be in here as well. Perhaps, perhaps not.
I have one.
Do we have one?
Yeah.
Okay. First, Bob, referring to A18, could you tell us what A18 represents?
Sure. It's a campus map, and it shows all the buildings of our campus, and those that are shaded in blue are over 38 feet in height.
And the reason we have 38 feet is because that's what the Radnor code requirement is.
That's correct.
How many buildings are there that's over 38?
About 27.
Right. And then A19?
List some of the taller buildings, again, that exceed the 38-foot height limit.
And basically Bartley, Sear, St. Augustine, St. Mary's, Tollentine.
And several of those are right around the engineering building.
Now, some of these
Nick, how many of these buildings have a variance attached to them?
several of them have variances, some of them predated zoning. For example,
Tollentine.
predated.
St. Mary's predated.
St. Mary's predated, and the zoning code up until the 80s permitted buildings that were 50 feet high. So some of these may have been even before then. I think Bartley, we did get relief for on Bartley at some point.
But I believe the addition matches the original, so same height.
Conley Center, I think that may have predated, that may have been, yeah.
Early 80s,
Driscoll,
10 years ago.
okay, so we would have gotten relief on that one. Driscoll's a nursing building, right? Yeah, we did
Correct.
get relief on nursing. Have you, first let me ask you a question. Is there any intent as a result of this addition to increase the enrollment of the university?
No, there's not.
Actually, the enrollment's been the same for the last 40 years, pretty much, hasn't it?
And our strategic plan since 1990 has been to keep the freshman class the same size.
Did you also set up meetings with neighbors?
We did. We sent 100 postcards to the immediate neighbors and had a neighbors meeting on Tuesday night.
And was there much
There-
attendance?
Only 2 folks showed up. We also reached out to the closest neighbor, spoke to them on the phone, answered their questions, and they had no issues with the project.
And this is in addition to the general mailing that you have to send out for the
That's
zoning
correct.
requirement.
That's correct.
Also, did we proceed to, since this will, if approved, involve a land development, did we also go to the Planning Commission for a recommendation on this zoning hearing?
We did. We met with the Planning Commission last week, and they unanimously recommended the project to move ahead.
I will mark that. You may, I don't know if you have that. I can mark it as an exhibit if you don't. I do have it. I'll mark that as A20. While I'm marking them, Bob, if you could just read into the record.
Sure. Memorandum dated December 11th, 2019, to the Zoning Hearing Board from John Lord, Planning Commission Chair, regarding Zoning Hearing Board Appeal 3051, 800 East Lancaster Avenue, Sear Building. As required by Section 280-142B of the Code of Radnor, the applicant appeared before the Radnor Planning Commission on Wednesday, December 11th, 2019, to review their Zoning Hearing Board application. The applicant is seeking a variance from Section 280.69C of the Zoning Code regarding height regulations or such other relief consistent with the exhibits and testimony presented at the hearing. The Planning Commission reviewed the Zoning Hearing Board application and voted unanimously to support Appeal 3051 by a vote of 5-0.
That's all I have for this witness.
One quick question. If you go back to, I think it was A2, it was the picture above, the existing, yeah, that's it. Just give us a sense of the proposed footprint of the addition as it would sit there.
I have it here.
Yeah, but no,
Yeah, he wants to say it on.
Okay.
okay.
Sure. So it's basically the grass area. Basically, the grass area here below. It's high here, low
Right,
here.
right.
The grass area here and here.
Okay, so it doesn't impact any of that parking there on that asphalt
It does.
area?
It does come a little bit into the first row of parking.
Okay. So, Kevin, could you educate me a bit in terms of parking requirements for the university and the implication of the addition, how that plays into that?
Sure, we addressed the parking issue with the new dorm construction. In essence, it was our position that Villanova is out of surplus parking, so any additional renovations and construction on site that would require additional parking, that the university would have to provide parking for that. So if they're going to remove parking, not only do they have to replace that, but then add additional parking for whatever the new parking requirements are for the new construction.
And the proposal will add that parking.
And can you share with us how that is being done?
Sure.
Sure. We plan to add one level to the law school garage that will accommodate the required new parking plus any parking that's lost.
What's the mechanic in terms of the requested grant of relief and the staging of
Yeah.
that proposed
Yeah.
addition?
What'll happen, if this is approved, we then would proceed to land development. Land development would have to show the required parking for this site. And if Kevin determines that there is not, we've looked at it. We obviously know we have the ability to provide the required parking. If by chance it was not permitted, then we wouldn't be able to build it.
And you don't anticipate there being a need for variance to add the additional
We do not.
level on the parking garage? Okay.
And was there any study done, because if you look back at the previous variance, one stipulation is there's no other location of the property suitable for the construction of the proposed engineering lab. Is there any other area on the property that's suitable for new construction?
I think you'll hear testimony from the dean that, part of the goal is to co-locate the research, the faculty, and the students. And so with the current building, that's where most of them are today. So we feel we need to keep them together.
Yeah, engineering is spread out throughout campus right now, and you'll hear testimony about how it's become very interdisciplinary among a lot of other majors as well, and therefore the intent here is to collate and condense all engineering into this particular building. Kevin?
I do. It's Kevin M. Smith, S-M-I-T-H.
And Kevin, what is your profession?
I'm an architect.
And by whom are you employed?
I am a partner at Robert A. M. Stern Architects in New York City.
And how long have you been employed as an architect or been an architect?
About 35 years.
And briefly, your educational background?
Did undergraduate and graduate studies at Yale University.
And have you worked in the past on college campuses?
That is the bulk of my practice for the last 20 years.
So your emphasis has been on college campuses?
College and university campuses of a variety of building types.
And if you could give us a brief example of some of the campuses you worked on?
Worked at about 40 of them
Okay.
at Harvard and the Drexel nearby.
All right. Let's make this easy. Did you ever
Villanova.
work, did you ever work on the Villanova campus? And
Yes,
then
I have.
what in particular have you worked on?
The Commons, the new development along the residential development along Lancaster Avenue, the Performing Arts Center, and little thing, the pedestrian bridge. So.
Okay. I'm going to refer you to what's been marked as A5. Well, first, perhaps I would ask that Mr. Smith be allowed as an expert in architecture, particularly as it relates to college campuses.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Kevin, A5, you could tell the
So
board what
yes,
that represents.
if you all look here at A5, this you're ruining my
Yeah, there you go,
chart
sorry.
here.
Yeah.
This is a description of the building addition. The hatched area is the existing footprint of Sear, and the new building actually goes over the terrace that's on the southeast portion of the existing Sear. In the light gray is the footprint of the existing, and what we have done here is, in accordance with your regulations, taken spot elevations at 20-foot intervals all around the perimeter of the building, which establishes that lower line here in this elevation, which is the average grade. As it was mentioned before, there is actually a significant grade change from the high point near the Tollentine Hall. So it's actually at elevation 458, and the lowest point of the site is 436. So that's 22 feet of grade change, and that continues around the building. So defining the average grade from as per this formula, there are actually two building heights that we're proposing. One is the building height, the upper line, which is effectively the 51 feet. It matches the relief that had been granted at the original construction of Sear, and this is both the average, they're flat roof portions, but the average height of the gabled portion of the building that is to the southeast, And then there's another level because we felt it was good neighborly to have the building that is closest to Springmill be a floor lower. So that is in the light, with the lighter blue color, and that one is a lesser height.
So the area along Spring Mill is a three-story
It's
building?
3 stories, and I will show you that as what that looks like in 3 dimensions.
Show you what's been marked as A6. Explain what A6 represents.
So this is an elevation taken from the road. This is really an internal one on the campus. On the right side is the existing SEER building. Right where my finger is about where the current entrance is. We're planning to reface that in a new stone that is more in keeping with the masonry of the immediate campus buildings, including the monastery and Tollentine. New entrance there. It is worth pointing out that instead of a long, unbroken eave, all elevations of the buildings have some ups and downs, and this is the eave line, which is actually lower. So that will seem the perceptual height of the building is lower than the parapet of the existing building, and the advantage of the sloped roof scenario is a way to hide mechanical equipment. The vents that are required for research labs will be pulled into these chimneys rather than having what you see on the right side of existing building with fume hood exhaust.
And the mechanicals will be?
Everything is screened. We're also taking the opportunity to screen some of the equipment that is now on the roof of SEER in this new addition.
A7?
A7 is the other side of the building, so it's really the southwest. It kind of faces Lancaster Avenue, so you see in the background Tollentine Hall. You can also see the slope as you go up.
Now, just Tollentine, so that Tollentine looks like it's much larger than this.
It is significantly taller in absolute height, and it is also 20 feet higher in its grade from where it starts from. On the left side is the existing SEER building. That's, as was described from Spring Mill, the existing building received a relief. It is in the front yard setback. The new building is 3 feet back from the required front setback. It's also 3 stories relative to the existing building, which is 4. And then as you move farther to the east, it is really more a full 3 stories, but again, it has some ups and downs, and it has an eave line and gables to help give it a more in the character of the campus buildings, and also more in the character of the smaller residential buildings closer to Lancaster.
Referring to A8?
This is a head-on elevation, so just would note the significant grade change. We've cut that line through the landscape as it moves down toward Lancaster Avenue, which is to my left. So this is the main facade, which goes from 3 stories at the top to 4 stories at the bottom. And again, this is an eave line, so the visual height of the building is really that eave, and we're using the roof to hide mechanical distribution and equipment up there.
Showing you A9?
And this is the short end of the existing SEER buildings. You can see what is to the left. That's the existing building. Our proposal is 3 stories tall and is also covered in stone and has a sloped roof that is the piece that faces our neighbors to Spring Mill. There is currently stone on this building, but we're trying to get a stone that is warmer and more in the character of the remainder of the campus.
So this new portion, that's the area that's facing, the new portion that's facing Spring Mill?
That's the area that's primarily visible from Spring Mill, and the Spring Mill also does climb in height.
And actually, there's an existing tree line there,
There's
correct?
existing trees, there's a buffer of trees that we intend to keep a buffer zone between us and the road.
Showing you A10. It's marked aerial view existing.
This is the drone's eye view of what there is now. So you can see the existing Sear building that is, as opposed to the bulk of the buildings that are visible, has a flat roof.
And then A11.
And A11 shows our proposed addition, which is forward of that, and is 3 stories on the left-hand side here, and going from 4 stories to 3 stories as you move up the hill toward Tollentine. So you can see that really in the context of the whole campus, and particularly in the context of maintaining the beautiful front lawn from Lancaster up to Tollentine and the monastery.
A12.
A12 is more of an internal view. This is right outside of Tollentine with the monastery behind you, looking toward the current entrance of Sear, and noting
That's on
that
the left side of the photo of the.
that's on. This here is what you see now, and this is the entrance of Sear and the chiller that's on the roof. And
You're referring to A13.
A13 is that same view taken from exactly the same position, with the chiller hidden. That's actually the existing entrance point of the current Sear. The addition goes to the left, main entrance here, and as you can see, a stone facade that is closer in character to both Tollentine and the other buildings up there.
A14.
A14 is,
Is this Spring Mill Road?
this is a photograph from Spring Mill Road. You're standing literally on the road. The current buffer trees, 4 stories of Sear on the left here, and 4 stories going farther away from the camera.
And that's existing.
And this is, as it is, I took that picture.
Okay.
Somehow we've.
This one there.
There's another.
A15.
And A15 is into that same photograph, the proposal, the 3-story wing that comes towards Spring Mill, a screening of the current existing service area, those same screen plantings between us and Spring Mill, and on a walkway to the south.
A16.
And A16 is the current view from basically the lawn on Lancaster Avenue. Again, Tollentine significantly up the hill. The same condition exists on the current Sear, where it's 3 stories on the right side and 4 stories on the left, because there's that grade change.
And A17.
Sorry.
Okay.
And the same view with the new building in place. Again, the eave line, chimneys to disguise the mechanical exhausts as in a nicer way, and a broader facade that kind of matches the facade of Tollentine and helps pull this whole thing into a composition.
Why the need for 51 feet high building?
The real need for the 51-foot high building is that we have already a 51-foot high building. We have 14-foot high floors, floor to floor of 14 feet. It's really important when we expand a building, particularly in engineering labs where there's a lot of things that need to roll around for those floor lines to line up. And because of the grade change even 3 stories doesn't fit within the 38 feet because the average grade is sort of affected by the slope as it goes downhill.
So the height of from floor to ceiling, or the height of these rooms in this building would be what?
The floor to ceiling weeks tend to be a little more than 10 feet. So it takes about 3'6" of a sandwich of between mechanical equipment and so on.
And then, go ahead.
And
Mechanicals?
so that gives us a 10'6" clear floor floor to ceiling within the 14-foot floor to floor.
And then the 14-foot floor to floor, is that common in engineering buildings now?
I
throughout
would, if you ask us to do a new building from scratch, I think most lab planners, including our experts here, would tell you would want to start with something closer to 16.
Is there a reason to have this size building from a sustainability standpoint as well?
I think a more compact building is certainly preferable from a point of view of sustainability, stormwater management, having a smaller footprint, having the connections to the building so that you could move from one to the other, and being compact and having less facade, which is the result of having this building shape that we have, and then we have some internal light, is more efficient from a energy use point of view.
Do you have any knowledge about integration of disciplines in the engineering field?
We do. One of the things, in general, there's been a big move in engineering education to a lot more focus on research. Students don't just sit in lecture halls and be told what to do. There's a lot more hands-on. It's research that they do with the faculty. So it demands a significant growth in just space for research. And the other trend we're seeing, and I think it's borne out here at Villanova, where there are disciplines that are really transdisciplinary. The sustainability initiative in engineering at Villanova is not purely mechanical, electrical, or civil. It crosses many disciplines, and it really creates the need to have people located. The dean will talk about other research that they do, but have people co-located and not distributed among 14 different buildings.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Board questions?
One question, A5, is that available?
That's the elevation building.
Right. Just would like to get a sense, the upper pitch line. Just describe for us, and I think you may have referenced it, what is above that line, and what is the ultimate elevation of some of those pieces?
Which line are you speaking of?
The flat roof.
And upper pitched?
Upper pitch line. There are a variety of items that
Right.
are.
So that is either a gable end, what's up there, or a sloped roof that goes up and
Right.
back down toward a flat roof that's no higher than the 51 feet.
And exhaust, is
We're able to get space in there for exhaust on the backside of that roof.
so, for example, probably the piece that is the most, the highest piece is toward the right of the diagram. That may be exhaust. What is that distance between the flat roof line and that ultimate portion of the structure?
So this is, there's about, as you can see here, it's about equal. It's about 6 feet up to the midpoint of the roof and 6 feet up to the peak.
Okay.
And in addition, there are those chimneys. They are less than 100 square feet in size, so that they are permissible obstruction.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to get a sense of, if we're measuring from the ground, not what the ultimate height is per the measurements of the zoning code, just practically. I mean, it's 50 plus 8 feet plus 10 feet plus 12 feet.
plus 6
Plus six.
is the peak. And some of those other, the peak is about 6 feet above that average.
Yeah, but I don't mean the peak of the structure. I mean the thing behind the peak of the structure that goes
The-
up
the-
higher
this
still.
chimney?
Yeah,
Chimney is probably another 10 feet above that.
okay.
That's a chimney, and
a
actually, I think we
chimney,
have a
if
view
you-
of that.
if you
Can we
s-
see that?
All right.
And as you know, the way they measure height is,
I
top of the
understand.
flat roof, median of sloped.
Really, it's best seen, sorry. No. Maybe it's under there. I'd say it's best, the
Okay.
nature of those things is
Right.
best seen
A17.
on A17.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Randy?
I do. Randy Weinstein, Weinstein.
And Randy, what is your profession?
I'm a professor of chemical and biological engineering and the interim dean of engineering.
At Villanova?
At Villanova.
Okay. And what's your educational background?
I have my undergraduate degree in chemical engineering from University of Virginia, and my PhD from MIT in chemical engineering.
How long you been teaching at Villanova?
21 years.
Since the 1990s, have the methods that you teach engineering at the university changed, not only at the university, but throughout the country?
Yeah, there's been a big shift from what we would call the sage on the stage, just lecturing. When I started at Villanova, it was pretty much pure lecture classes, much easier for the faculty member to get up there and just talk. And pretty much now we try to minimize the amount of lecturing we actually do to students. A lot of flipped classrooms, more hands-on projects, integrating labs and teaching together, a lot of multidisciplinary projects. So we kind of expanded out of traditional lecture classrooms into more interactive hands-on learning experience classrooms.
You mentioned multidisciplinary. Is there a need? We've been talking, heard Kevin testify regarding the need for bringing everything into one building. Is there a need for that, and could you explain?
Yeah, so we're still sticking with our 5 primary undergraduate disciplines, but we've added a significant number of multidisciplinary minors that cross the disciplines because that's kind of where the trend of engineering education is going. And all of those education needs have interdisciplinary spaces and faculty from multi-departments working together on those educational things. In addition, the research projects when I started here were really stuck in your department and stuck in your discipline, and now they're more complex, more interactive. The federal government is funding more interdisciplinary type research, so it's really the faculty research teams have become really cross-disciplinary, both within engineering and also with faculty outside of engineering joining us.
What type of research projects are going on?
A lot of research, and that's the other big change that's taken place. As faculty are retiring out of the old Villanova, which didn't do an incredible amount of research, they were pure teaching faculty. They're being replaced with faculty that have research desires and research needs, and hence why we need to build more research space for them. But the disciplines and the research that we are going to is getting pretty complex. We have a significant amount of drone research going on that takes up a lot of space in order to do that. We have a lot of bioengineering and biomedical engineering research that didn't exist 25 years ago, and building space for that is pretty intense. Our stormwater research is probably world-renowned with Rob Traver, who's done work all over the world to kind of do stormwater management. We're pretty known for our radar and through-the-wall imaging techniques for safety and security reasons. So we've gotten some pretty complex research going on within the college, and we're really trying to get our undergraduate students in the lab doing research with the faculty members.
So actually, the undergrads participate in the research as well? It's not just...
Yeah, that's a big change for us as well. So they do independent study, summer research, research for credit. We have right now about 40% of our undergraduate students participate in a faculty research project or independent study project. We'd like to get that up to at least 75%, but we really can't do that with the spaces we have.
And that's done in kind of a lab setting now? as
Yeah,
opposed
it's
to-
really an interactive hands-on lab setting. It's not done at a computer. It's not done in an office.
Yeah, and is there need for a higher level of story, when we're talking about stories, height stories.
Yeah, for some of the
lab space.
research, particularly the drone research is pretty intense, so to keep that inside and keep it safe, you need high ceilings and even multiple story rooms that you can have access to that. A lot of our cutting edge heat transfer that does a lot of data storage and things as heat rises. In order to get accurate measurements, you need a lot of head clearance space in order to let that go up pretty clean. A lot of our imaging techniques, radar, antenna research, or things like that for angles and things require large clearance areas, which we really don't have significant space to be able to do that now.
Has the teaching infrastructure changed in the last 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, we really need more flexible, movable spaces, interactive spaces. I mean, I would think the big thing that changed is group work in the classroom, not just for homework or projects. So having the students to be able to work on teams during the class time, working on things, means you need bigger space to put the same number of students in so they can interact and do that. And eventually, we're going to get to virtual reality type systems, and if we want to get a total virtual reality immersive classroom, we've got to prepare for that now in order to be able to design that for the future.
Currently, is engineering spread throughout the university?
We're currently in 7 buildings. We have the structural engineering lab, which is its own standalone building, and then we have labs and offices spread throughout 6 other buildings on campus. And ideally, what we want to do is bring the heart of engineering all into one location so that we're not bringing research in between buildings and having faculty together to be able to work and interact together and not have to trudge around and interact. So when the students sit at the research projects and they might be working with someone 5 buildings away, it's really ineffective at being able to get a really intense research collaboration going.
How about throughout the country, particularly with your competitive schools? Has engineering and engineering building and structure differed in the last 20 years or
Yeah,
changed
I
in the last
mean,
20 years?
we're suffering with our tours in engineering. Lafayette just opened a new building for science right now. Bucknell opened a new engineering building. Rowan opened a new engineering building. These are all in the past 2 years. Penn has done 2, Drexel's done 1. We're really late to the game here, unfortunately.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
One question. So the space that you're going to consolidate here, so what's going to happen to that other area that is now not used for labs? Is it just going to be?
It's really
used for-
decompression. We're short on classroom spaces, so I know we've taken spaces that are going to be converted to classrooms because we have a scheduling issue trying to keep our small class sizes down, and we're having a lot more minors and things going on, so we're really short on spaces. And we need some just decompression of things that are in really inefficient, bad, old spaces that they're going to be able to renovate and make bigger. We're not planning to grow undergraduate population at all. Our master's program is really online, and that's where our growth is in engineering. It's a moneymaker for us. So our real growth is to try to grow our online distance students in the master's degree programs.
That's all I have at this time. Well, we'll wait until. Thank you.
Is there any member of the public that would like to speak with respect to this application? Come on up, don't be shy. Seeing none.
I guess, is Rich asking for party status here, or?
Mr. Booker, are you asking for party status here?
No, I haven't. I haven't asked for party status.
Okay. You need to be sworn.
I do, so help me God. Richard Booker, Belrose Lane. First, I'd like to thank the zoning hearing board.
Rich, I have to object. He lives probably 3 miles from the site. I'm objecting to standing.
And what ward does this property sit in?
This is.
I agree.
Okay.
I believe
I live closer than that. I live within a mile. All right. Thank you once again for your voluntary service to the township, the zoning hearing board, and for council. It's a very important function, so thank you for your service. Just a little background on the area that we're talking about in general along Lancaster Avenue and this area. In 1993.
Rich, I'm sorry. One of the things we want to try to do when we hear testimony is have testimony that is specific to the application that's in front of us.
Yeah.
I think general descriptions of a neighborhood we all know does not fall into that category. So if there are specific issues you wish to raise with respect to the application, we're certainly happy to hear them.
I think that this is relevant, and you obviously you know the area. This is
Well,
near your.
I just made the determination of whether that was relevant. So if there are specific issues you wish to raise with respect to the application that's in front of us, we're happy to hear them.
Yes, please. In 1993, there was an agreement with the neighbors between Villanova and the neighbors in the township that allowed Villanova to change the zoning in this area from.
No relevance, we're talking about West Campus, has no relevance to this project.
Yes, it does.
No, I'm going to allow that.
There was an agreement in 1993. It was zoned residential at the time. The neighbors, Township, Villanova agreed to change the zoning to institutional, and in accordance with that agreement, as a condition, Villanova at that time promised that they would not exceed any of the zoning requirements. 2014.
Is there a copy of that agreement you could share with the board? Because I was not on the board in 1993.
I will provide that. I don't have it with me, but we do have it. But 2014, as you all know.
If we can't see it, Rich, we can't make a determination on whether it's applicable to the case that's in front of us.
And honestly, it's between it's between parties. If
Well,
there is,
the
that
town-
is,
the
that's
town-
a
the
breach.
township was
That's
a party.
That's a breach of contract.
The township was a party.
We're here to hear a zoning. That's a contractual claim that you can bring into court if you'd like to do that.
Understood.
We're here in an application to see if they have a hardship, if they're
Understood.
entitled to a variance. So
I just wanted to make you aware of it.
it's fine, but to the fact that we can't see the agreement is not making us aware of it.
I will provide it.
You need to
Subsequent.
give it before we close this hearing. That's the problem.
Well, why can't I provide it subsequent to the hearing?
Because
Because the decision will have
tonight.
already been made.
Yes.
Gus?
The hearing's tonight, so if they finish this hearing tonight, I'm in no position, or no one else actually is, to accept any evidence. Tonight's an evidentiary hearing.
Well, I would ask, I will attempt to, it has been provided on another issue related to Villanova, and I will make every effort in the next few minutes to get it to you. But trust me, it exists. As you're also aware,
If I may, this agreement that Rich is referring to refers to the rezoning of West Campus. This is not West Campus. West Campus is up at County Line Road and Spring Mill Road. Any indication that that agreement affects this property is just wrong and false.
do you have a copy of the agreement?
Rich, I was involved in the agreement.
Gentlemen, Nick, Mr. Cornelia, we certainly, I can assure you, the board understands your opposition to this testimony, but we'll let the witness testify and move on.
Yeah, I mean, just let me, I'm making a statement as a community member here. As you all are aware, 2014, we had the zoning overlay, the CICD, which allowed in this area 1,145 bed dorm, performing arts center, parking structure.
Is this being
We also
constructed in the
had-
CICD?
What's that?
Is this building being constructed in the CICD? Thank you.
CICD is right in that, it's right in this area. We also had recently a 2017 expansion of the stadium offices and expansion of the auxiliary building near the stadium. And in 2019, in the same area, we had an application for a dome to cover the practice fields, which came to this board and which you did not approve. That application precipitated the current litigation. As you know, Villanova appealed your decision and won at Common Pleas Court, and currently it's at Commonwealth Court. So that is still pending on the dome. As you know, nonprofit entities like Villanova are now very big business. Currently, there's approximately $1.7 trillion in outstanding federal student loan debt.
Yeah, Rich, you got to get to the point, the facts on this proposal. Anything else, or I'm going to have to cut you off.
Okay. That money has fueled
You're done.
this building program. Well, hold on, let me.
If you refuse to offer germane testimony to the matter that is before us this evening, we don't have time, and it's not relevant to the proceeding, and it's not moving it forward. So
Okay, so
get to relevant points, or we're going to have to move on.
Okay, this is all relevant.
Do you understand? Let me share with you the notion that as the chair of the zoning hearing board, I'm charged with the determination of deciding what's relevant or not. And I have tried to express to you the need for you to get to specific issues that relate to this application. Everything outside that is not going to be relevant. And that's my determination. So I invite you one last time to get to something that's relevant, or we will move on.
What's relevant here is there's the neighbors at Ashwood and Hilldale, which is right across from Hilldale. The entrance, this building is right across from Hilldale. Villanova is now asking to exceed the height requirements and expand this building 150,000 square feet. They request to be allowed to build a 55-foot-high building where no more than 38, I believe, is allowed. Parking is proposed to be met by adding on to the law school garage. However, no information on exactly how that will be approved, if it will be approved, has been provided. Until such time as the applicant shows the parking expansion and documents that it will be permitted and that it's by right, it's premature to approve this plan. Moreover, in light of the current dispute over the proposed dome, I believe it's not prudent to allow additional height variances for other construction near these neighbors at this time. If Villanova should seek to do a by right plan that does not exceed building height, that's more appropriate for this applicant. There is no hardship in staying within current zoning, notwithstanding anything that happened before we were involved, before any of us were involved. So thank you for your consideration of the neighbors, the additional traffic, and the hardship that is imposed on the neighbors today, many of whom, including John, many of whom may have moved into the area before Villanova had such an increase in construction on their site. And when they moved in, many people moved into a place where it was a small men's college. So it's much different today than it has been. So I ask you to consider those points.
Thank you. Any questions?
Question for solicitor. Are there implications to the appeal pending before Commonwealth Court on the issue of the dome to a potential determination by the board this evening to grant a variance per the request?
I'm not privy to the appeal. Obviously, that appeal and variance application before you predates my involvement with the zoning board, so I can't speak to what exactly is going on with that appeal. I am not privy at all to that appeal. My apologies, but
That's fine. I mean, I don't.
I agree. I was thinking the same thing, but the reality is the physical location is a big thing in question here. And at least from my recollection of the dome, that was not an issue.
I would assume these are fact-specific determinations, and you don't set a precedent by doing one thing at one location as contrasted with a different location.
We don't have to follow precedent.
yeah, I mean, not being privy to the appeal, I don't see how that appeal involving the dome, unless somebody can raise an issue with it, would affect this application that's here before you today.
If I may, gentlemen, it is an issue of height. If you recall.
We're aware.
No,
We're aware.
Right,
of
so
We
the
all
position.
sat on the case.
Right, so I think it does bear on the case, and so I would again raise that issue.
Counsel?
May. Yeah, if I just may on that issue. The dome issue, the case is closed. The transcript from this board went to Common Pleas Court. They ruled on that transcript. That transcript went to Commonwealth Court. They are in the process of ruling on that transcript right now and on the facts of that case. It has no bearing. What happens here this evening has absolutely no bearing on what happens on the seasonal dome case. Record is closed there.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Any other comments? Roberta, good evening.
Good evening. Yes, I do. Roberta Winters, Winters, 326 Williams Road, and again, I'm not necessarily, you want to question my standing, Nick?
You're not asking for standing, I assume.
No, I'm asking to clarify, some clarification for questions. Is that permissible? I was-
Williams is more than 1,000 feet from the location,
Yes,
so you would not have been on the list for notice.
no.
If council has no objection,
I just have, I don't think Roberta's asking for standing, correct?
No, I'm not asking for
She has
standing.
questions?
I have some questions. And I was wondering if, in fact, the average was 51 feet, am I correct? So there's places, as you indicated, Mr. Martin, that were higher than 51 feet and some that were lower? Okay. And also, was there a square footage difference between what exists now and what's the additional space will be? It's
yes, it's
It's-
an addition of 150,000 feet.
150,000. And the existing building is now? 92,000?
That's correct.
Okay. And I also was wondering if there was any consideration of traffic, or will that be dealt with by another committee? I know the parking is being addressed.
I think we heard testimony that the student enrollment is not going to go up, nor.
know.
So if any, and everything is just getting
But
consolidated.
changes
so-
in parking create changes in traffic patterns.
Well, I think we also heard a testimony that the parking is going to be handled at a different
At the
location.
law school.
Yes, so it's not really, they're not handling parking at that area.
And I suspect that that's going to be addressed in the saldo process, assuming that,
Thank you, that's
Relief is
very
granted.
helpful. And I would just like to make one last comment, and I think that one difficulty I always have is when things are done in December, it's really hard to get people involved in the community. And, so I think that as we look to make variances like this, it's really important that we try to look at the calendar. I know there's no ideal time, but in consideration of the future, it would be nice if big decisions weren't made in December.
well,
Thank you.
let me just say that we are bound by the requirements of the municipality's planning code to hear appeals within certain periods of time, a certain period of time from the time that the appeal is submitted to the township. So we'd like to think that we have the ability to schedule these things, but we don't. But
Timing is critical, however. Thank you.
are there any other members of the public who wish to be heard on this? Okay. We have received 2 pieces of correspondence from neighbors in the neighborhood, one from Brett Husar at 313 Hilldale Road. Council, I believe you have copies of these. And another letter from Tatiana Husar, also of 313 Hilldale Road. Without objection, I would mark these as, well, it's something 1 and 2. P1 for public 1, P2 for public 2 for these letters. So the Brett Husar letter will be P1. The Tatiana Husar letter will be P2. And generally, I don't want to take the time to read them into the record, but I think it's fair to say that these 2 letters are in opposition to the proposal for the relief.
They're already in here, so.
Okay.
They actually referenced the Dome decision again, which we talked about here this evening. I think that was the main concern.
Okay, if there's nothing else, Nick, do you want to move your exhibits
Sure. Request the exhibits be made part of the record, please.
without objection? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to get discussion started?
I will make a motion. I'm not gonna, I don't think expanding the current variance is the right motion, so I'm gonna go with a new variance. So to grant the variance under 280-69C of the zoning code regarding height regulations as per the plans and testimony.
Second.
Board discussion?
I mean, I think if we spend an hour, we should provide some rationale. I think, I mean, from my perspective, I think that the university is owed a level of deference in terms of their development of what I would consider area interior to the campus. And I also think that the design demonstrated an attempt to reduce the visual impact for proximate neighbors. There's the effort made to stay out of the setback. And I think that given the totality of the circumstances, it's a request worthy of approval.
100% agreement.
And I would also agree with that. There has been sensitivity shown in the design to the most immediate neighbors. The lower portion of the addition in the locations that are most likely to have an effect on the neighbors, I think evidences the applicant's good faith that they're trying to construct an addition that satisfies both their institutional need, but also their obligation to be a sensitive neighbor when this is a significantly sized addition. But as Bill has pointed out, most of it tends to be interior towards the center of the campus as opposed to edging on the extremes of the campus. So I also agree with the rationale that Bill has offered. With that said, I would call the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There are none. Good luck with the project.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, moving on to appeal number 3052. The applicant, Stephen D. Amicantonio, property located at 350. I've lived in the neighborhood a long time. Property located at 359 Sugartown Road and zoned R4 residential. The applicant seeks a variance from section 280-109A, which limits, typo in the notice, the height of a fence in the front yard setback in the R4 zoning district to 4 feet. Applicant seeks to install a fence 6 feet in height. In the alternative, applicants request any other relief in accordance with the plans and exhibits submitted. Counsel?
Thank you. Nick Keneally, representing the applicant. Stephen DiMicatonio. Steve, Norma's going to swear you in.
I do. Stephen DiMicantonio, D'*A*Micantonio.
Steve, I've marked a number of exhibits here. I'm going to just start out first, and you're going to want to use that one.
Sure.
Do you currently live at 359 Sugartown Road?
Yes,
Who owns that property?
my uncle.
And we have,
Sure.
I've marked as, you have his permission to appear here
Correct.
this evening. I've marked as A2B, power of attorney from Bobby, from your Uncle Robert to
Correct.
to you.
Yes.
To proceed here this evening. And You're living there now. The intent is that eventually you'll purchase the property?
That's correct.
Actually, you grew up close to this area, didn't you?
Originally, the house behind, but across the street, and then just 2 blocks away.
Okay. Going to show you what's been marked, actually A2, and that's a copy of the deed to the property.
Yes.
To show you A4, is this the front of your house?
Yes.
All right, and it's located in the R4 zoning district?
Correct.
And for whatever reason, in the Radnor Township zoning code, in the R4 and R5 zoning districts, they limit the height of fences in the front yard setback to 4 feet, whereas they permit 6-foot high fences in the other district. And I'll look to Kevin on that one.
The lots are smaller.
But normally R4 and R5, you're fronting on, like here, Sugartown Road, Lancaster Avenue. Kevin and I have had, he doesn't disagree with my theory on this, that I understand why A4 and A5 get the shaft on this as opposed to the other zoning districts. But in any event, that's what the zoning code says. Sorry. I grew up in an R5 zoning district right down the street.
Is this a challenge to the validity of the statute?
No, I'm not going there with it. I'm not going there. So I'm going to show you what's been marked as A4, and the road in front there, that's Sugartown Road?
Correct.
And then Longwood Drive is the road on the side?
Correct.
That's the front of the home?
Correct.
And the front's on Longwood?
This
Oh,
is
I'm sorry, on Sugartown, yeah.
yes.
Sugartown a busy road?
Very.
What's right across the street from here?
Stonegate Properties, the apartment complex. That's actually their main entrance, right across the street from.
That's that large apartment complex that we used to call Devon Stratford Apartments?
Correct.
Sugartown News and, I'm sorry.
From Poplar Road down to the old municipal district court.
Yeah, in Tredyffrin.
Correct.
Across the street in Tredyffrin. I'm going to show you what's been marked as A3. And A3, again, we see Sugartown Road in the front there, Avon Road, which is the road leading to the apartments.
Yes.
And Longwood Drive.
Correct.
And looking at A3, again, we see the front of your home, of the home on Sugartown.
Yes.
On the left, the side yard. Basically, we see no side yard on the left there.
There is no side yard, no, not to the left.
In the rear, is there any rear yard?
There's about 8 feet.
Okay, and
Sliver.
so really the only yard on this site is that yard on Longwood to the right there.
Correct.
And what this indicates is the fence line that you're proposing.
Correct.
And the fence line is, at least along Sugartown, is 40 feet away, which we comply since it's not in the front yard setback, but
Correct.
it is in the front yard setback on Longwood Drive, correct?
Yes.
And your proposal is to have it 12 feet, 4.5 inches from the cartway, from the roadway itself.
Correct. That's where public safety.
Yeah, and
said
actually,
stop.
the Radnor Public Safety Police come out and look at this site as to the appropriateness of the fence in the front yard setback?
Yes, and they placed a pin in the ground. They placed a pin in the ground where it had to stop.
I'm sorry, is on the Longwood side, is that that's not in the right of way, correct?
No.
It may be just out of it, or it may be a half a foot. He's got to be careful of that. You're not going to be able to put it in the right of way.
Okay.
Yeah, it may, when I measured it, looking at cartway and right of way, it looked like it may be a half foot.
I mean, I'm not
right.
familiar really with what you're
Although
considering right
it's
away.
where the police put it's where the police put the posts. I think that's why he put it there. Because police.
It's even further from their post, actually, away from the road.
Asking a question.
Yeah. We have to be careful.
Sure.
All right, of that. Showing what's been marked as A5. And actually already have a portion of the fence there. You got a permit for
Correct.
the back portion
Yes.
of it, all right? And that post there, or that pin, is that, who placed that there?
That's proposed where that's where the police put the post right there.
Okay, so this is what the police put
Correct.
this in here.
Yep.
And that's where you're measuring your yard from.
Yes.
And then A6, this is just where they put the post on Longwood, but we're nowhere near Longwood, right?
Correct. They put it right there.
Right. But you're not.
That's
I'm sorry.
Sugartown. That's Sugartown.
Oh, that's Sugartown here, and so you're constructing the fence to that.
Yeah, it's following
a little
that
bit short.
line right
Got
there.
How high of a fence do you plan on putting up?
Per the fence company, it'll be 5 to 5.5 feet, depending on the grade. Most likely 5.
So it'd be less than
Correct.
was being proposed. And actually, the area you're putting it in, as we mentioned, is the only side, or the only yard area you really have on the whole site, correct?
That's it, yes.
Because you have a corner lot, so technically, they treat it like 2 front yards.
Correct.
To show you what's been marked as A7, if you can just describe what A7 is.
That is the type of fence that I would like to get for the proposed area.
That's all I really have.
Turning your attention to A5, I guess we have that post there in the picture. That is how high? Is that 6 feet?
Yes, that's the permitted 6-foot fence along the back line.
So the back line, actually, the fence you have on the back line is different than the fence you're putting along the front.
Correct.
Okay.
And I guess, is the post in the front yard setback?
That
It's the
permit-
corner.
I know.
It's the corner.
He received a permit for that fence. That's why he put it up. I hear you.
There's a 6-foot post in the front yard setback already.
If you look at A4,
One.
Bill or John, if you look at A4, that's what's been constructed. So technically, we would need relief for that, although he did receive a permit for it. So we're relying, we're asking for the fence, yeah.
Forgiveness as opposed to permission.
Yeah.
I like the concept.
Well, no, it's.
No, I understand. I understand.
This is recent, actually. They put this up, and they knew that this was going on,
Okay, so then, leaving aside the propriety of that post for the present, so, just to alliterate, so the remainder of the fence will be at a lower height
Correct.
of a different construction, more transparent, if you will,
Yes,
than
like see-through.
the more privacy fence
Correct.
that you have on the back. Okay. And for the location, or for the, so both sides of the front yard fences will be the three rail.
Correct. It's
Okay,
actually
all right.
4 rail.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks. Thank you.
Why the requested height instead of 4 feet?
Mostly because of my dog. Very hyper, breed, can jump very high. I need a knee replacement at 32. If he gets out, I can't chase him, and I know he would be able to get over a 4-foot fence if he wanted to. Sure. Mostly because of my dog. I have a breed that's very, they jump a lot, very fast, a boxer. I know a 4-foot fence, if he wanted to, he could jump over. And being how busy the road is, the intersection, the apartment entrance, I need a knee replacement. If he gets out, I can't chase after him. That's if he doesn't get killed by a car on that road.
And is there going to be screening in between the rails of the fence? Is this an animal that is mischievous enough to get through them?
There is chicken wire, like a vinyl-coated wire that gets attached to the fence.
And the purpose of the fence is to contain the dog or for other reasons?
Yes, to contain the dog.
And other options?
It's
that are-
also giving you.
It's also giving me a
secure-
yard.
Yeah, yard.
I don't have any other area like other houses have.
So other options that are available in the marketplace in terms of, invisible fences or things like that, is that anything you considered, or is it not simply the dog, but other reasons why you feel you would prefer a fence?
I've considered it. I know people that have had them and have dogs get out through them, especially the bigger breeds like mine. But again, going back to containment and to have an actual yard that's designated just, as mine, kind of private, not out in the middle of everything, right there in the intersection.
Any other questions from the board?
Just quickly, too, I've asked these exhibits be made part of the record, please.
Without exception.
Also, do have a unique yard here. We have a corner lot, which basically has no backyard, no front yard. So actually, the side that is not the front, even though it is under our code, part of the front yard, is where we're asking for the relief in this particular instance. You know, I would hold to the board, too, to some extent, this relief is de minimis when you consider the totality of everything.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
But I was going to say, just a quick question. I mean, you testified that you're putting in a 5-foot fence, but you're looking for a request for 6? That's, and me personally, I mean, if I had a dog, I'd want to go 6. Because 4 and 5 is not a big deal.
Sure. I mean, the fence company said it would be between 5 and 5.5, depending on the grade of the yard. They can't say for sure until it's being installed.
Right, but they're going to know the post height.
Now, do you understand that if they give you the relief, it's based on the relief that you're granted here
Testifying.
this evening, and you're testifying that it's...
So if you're going to testify
5.5
between
feet.
5 and 5.5, and that's what you want to get, you know, that's certainly less than 6.
Sure.
But I guess my other concern is that you put in this fence and your dog jumps over it. And you come back and say, boy, I should have put a 6 in there.
I can see if they can make it 6 while they're at it. If,
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, we're not suggesting that you change your plans. We're
Sure.
just suggesting that there are ways of perhaps ensuring yourself a bit more flexibility.
I would request that the relief be granted, even though the intent is a 5 to 5.5 foot, that the relief be granted to install a fence that be no higher than 6 feet, even though the intent is the 5.5 feet.
And again, it's for both front yards. I just want to make sure I'm getting clear on that one.
No, I think it's just the Longwood front yard, actually, but it's, yeah,
Okay.
because it's not on Sugartown.
So it's just Longwood,
It's
okay.
just Longwood, because we have enough distance on the Sugartown, or on the Sugartown side.
Okay.
And will the applicant agree to a condition that it not be in the right-of-way?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's not, I think it's, yeah. I think.
The applicant has just agreed to the condition that the fence will not be in the right-of-way.
But if they tried to pull a permit that was in the right of way, Kevin would say no, right? Even though 6 foot is allowed, we're not giving relief in terms of right of way, correct?
Correct, yes, we would look at that on the application. I'm also checking to see the issue of the fence that's already been installed, to see if it was installed correctly per the plan, or if there was another issue. So I'm checking with staff on that issue as well.
Okay, so then he's, okay, got it. I think it's, by the way, I think Nick's relief is broad enough to cover what's existing, at least.
I think
I think if you want to ask
relief is to
for
be
it.
granted,
I asked-
it would, yeah.
That should be made clear in the motion.
Your notice, I think, is broad enough to cover even the existing,
Right.
because it doesn't specifically say what area on the property.
Foot, 4.5, so you're like a half foot
okay.
off.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
give them
I did a
the measurements
calculation on
and
the right-of-way, actually, in the office, and I think where his measurement is a half foot into the right-of-way. So that's why I was just telling him that we're 8 inches into the right-of-way, something of that nature. He's got to,
I think we're here to just grant the 6-foot relief, not necessarily the location, because we're not going to give relief in terms of where you put the fence, but the height of the fence, except to, and then as well, if you want to do the 6 foot on the rear, to see if that happens to be, we can vote on that as well.
I would think the police may have put those posts in where the right-of-way is, because it's awful close, so that's what I'm thinking. I don't know, but we'll make certain it's not in.
So would you like to include the variance, to include the rear fence?
Yes.
Being 6 foot?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, right now, yes,
Okay, I'm
because it says
making
the front
sure.
yard, and it's in the, and clearly it's in the front yard. You know, and whether he received a permit for it or not, it's in the front yard. We would request the relief for that.
I did get the permit. for the
And
rear.
to the extent that that portion happens to be in the right of way, well then.
I don't know if it is, well, I don't know, it's close. It's like 8 inches if it is, yeah.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm sorry, you're done, Nick?
I'm done, thank you.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak with respect to this application? Seeing none, to ask for a motion to get discussion started?
I would make a motion to grant a variance under Section 280-109A, granting relief for a fence height of up to 6 feet in the front yard setback.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I got confused during that last conversation. Is the variance as suggested phrased such that it would only permit on Longwood?
I think as long as the fence is in the front yard setback, they got relief. That was my logic. Now, maybe we should clarify that you can't get it on
I mean, I guess
on Sugartown, because I'm not giving it for Sugartown. I'm giving it for Longwood.
But it's a corner lot, it has 2 front yards, so
We should clarify.
so we really do need to clarify.
Okay, so I'll modify my motion to say that a 6-foot-high fence in the front yard setback on Longwood Drive. That would be the relief.
Second on the amended motion? Assuming the first motion was seconded?
Well, it's second, but I think I might want to clarify with the applicant what's going on here. Can we look at A3?
Sure.
Okay. So what you're proposing, the fence you want to install is that white line that's on A3, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you're envisioning all that fence being of the same height?
The rear portion of it would not be.
Point again to the rear portion. Okay. But you are proposing that I guess, I'm not crazy about the idea of 6 foot along Sugartown out near the property line. Because I think they're.
Sorry, he's allowed to do it in Sugartown because he's not putting the front yard setback. So he's allowed to do the Sugartown fence by right. He's not allowed to
At
do it
6
along.
feet?
At 6 feet.
Okay.
But Longwood, he can't.
Thanks
Because
for the
it's the second.
clarification.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the problem is, even though it's not in the front yard it's not in the front yard of Sugartown, it is definitely the front yard of Longwood, so. And the portion, there's already a 6-foot portion constructed, which is in the rear, yeah. So, okay. Okay, hearing no further discussion, I'll call a vote on the amended motion. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? There are none? Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on. Appeal number 3053, the applicant, 132 West Wayne Avenue Associates LP, property located at 132 West Wayne Avenue and zoned R5 residential. The applicant proposes to convert the existing building from a non-conforming commercial office use to a permitted 4-unit apartment use. The proposed residential use is non-conforming as to the lot width, which is section 280-35B1, and side yard setback, section 280-35B3B, requirements of the zoning code for multiple family residential use. The applicant seeks a variance from section 280-35B1 and section 280-35B3B, a special exception or relief pursuant to 280-101B and/or section 280-101C, since the building and lot is an existing legal nonconformity. In the alternative, applicant requests any other relief in accordance with the plans and exhibits submitted. Counsel.
Thank you. Nick Cornelia, representing the applicant. Just by way of, again, this is an existing building on West Wayne Avenue, half a block up from the post office. Those homes on that side of West Wayne, on the left side of West Wayne as you're going up the street, I guess, which would be the south side, are appearance-wise, that's except for the library and the post office, are residential in nature. Back in prior to the 1980s, this zoning district, the R5 zoning district, permitted professional offices and development as offices as well as homes. Approximately the late 80s, early 90s, that provision was removed from the R5 district. This property currently is non-conforming as to use, since there is a commercial use in there. What we're proposing is a conforming use, which is permitted in the R5 zoning district, that being 4 apartments in this particular case. It meets all the requirements for lot area. It does not meet the requirement for lot width for multiple family dwellings. That requirement's 100 feet. I believe this property is 80 feet. We also have an existing building on this site that is non-conforming as to the setbacks. Nothing's being changed in the building. It's not being expanded. It's not being enlarged. All we're doing is interior renovation, and the proposal is to turn it in from the current non-conforming use to a conforming apartment, multiple family dwelling. Swear in, Julian.
I do. Julian Sir, S-U-R.
And Julian, what is your relationship to the property?
I am the owner of the property with my wife.
I'm
the owner of the property with my wife.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as A2. Is this the deed to the property?
Yes, that is.
And you acquired it in 2013?
Yes, I did.
Now, when was the property built? Do you know?
Approximately 1895.
Okay, I'm going to mark, I've marked, this is a property card from Delaware County, basically showing year built, effective date, and it says 1900 in this instance. I've marked it as A11. I'll hand it up to the board. And obviously, the reason to show this is that we have an existing nonconformity as to the setback on the side yard setback. It complies with all other setbacks, as you'll see. I've also marked as A3, and this is the relief granted to SGN Associates for the they switched from one nonconforming use to another nonconforming use, and they got permission back in 1999 to do that. And that's been marked as A3, Julian?
Yes, that's true.
And then I've also marked as A4. This is the zoning code from 1987. And again, the only reason for this, as I mentioned in opening, was to show that a professional office type use was permitted in the zoning district. Julian, currently, how's the building used?
I'm using it as one of my locations for my CPA firm.
Okay, so you're an
yes.
CPA? All right. Is there also, do you also have a dwelling that's always been upstairs?
Yeah,
one
there's
dwelling?
a residential tenant's been there since approximately 1993.
Okay. As far as you know, has it always been one residential unit up there?
Yes, as far as I know.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A5, which the board has also. And is this an actual accurate view of your property?
Yes, that is.
And it's the one with the red arrow on it that says 132 West Wayne Avenue?
Yes, that is.
And it shows some parking in the front and relatively large parking lot in the rear.
Yes, that is.
And we're not adding any impervious coverage here, correct?
No.
We have sufficient parking for the apartment
Yes.
as required by code?
Yes.
Showing you what's been marked as A6, is this the front of the building?
Yes, that is.
And that's looking at the building from West Wayne Avenue?
Yes.
And then A7 is just, again, just a photograph of the front of the building?
Yes, that is.
And A8, is that a photograph of the rear of the building? Where the
Yes,
parking
that's the
area
photo
is?
of the back.
Nick, I'm sorry, can I interrupt for a moment? You indicated that these are just internal renovations, so no land development, no saldo.
I don't believe there is. I don't know if Mr. Kachansky agrees, but there is no exterior building, so,
Are you changing, so you're not adding any interior floor space?
no.
No, I wouldn't think it would. I'll check with the township engineer. They govern subdivision land developments, but in my experience, if they're not increasing the square footage, then no.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to show you, Julian, what's been marked as A12, and I'm actually going to ask you to describe what is in the surrounding area, but let me hand it to the board first before we start.
Julian.
And Julian, just showing, referring to A12 here, and if we can, we're showing Lancaster Avenue in this area, correct?
Yes.
As you come down Lancaster Avenue on South Wayne here, you make the right on the West Wayne Avenue, correct?
Correct.
And your property is 132?
Correct.
All right. Now, across the street from you, why don't we start there? What's located basically in all these properties across the street from you?
There's, I think, 3 investment financial management firms, one large lumberman's mutual cooperative, a huge red building, and then there's another big law firm or investment kind of office building on the left-hand side. All the properties are commercial.
Yeah, and Central Baptist is a,
So there's a church and there's a school.
yeah, it's all relatively commercial
Yes.
type development.
Yeah.
Now, looking on your side of the street, and PO, that's
The post office.
right? The next property,
The library.
120,
That's the ABC House. That's a non-profit organization which houses approximately 10 children who are able to live there so they can go to school at Radnor and gain educational benefits.
124,
124 is is a 4-unit property, very similar to what I'm proposing.
and I'm just going to mark as A13, and this again is the card from the county for 124. It indicates a lot that's 85 feet wide, correct?
Yes.
Which, does not conform.
Right.
And it also indicates on the second page, living units 4.
Yes.
So it's very similar to your.
Yeah, very similar.
Okay, now going to 128.
128 is a single-family residence.
Your property is 132?
Yep.
136?
That's an office building with chiropractors and various other businesses, which I don't know what they are. They don't advertise.
140?
Is a single with another condominium home behind it.
And 142, I believe.
Oh,
there's
so
two-
that's- yeah,
I
that's
think
the one.
140 may be the single, 142 may be
Oh, yeah,
a
the two
two-unit
condo, yeah,
condominium.
yeah, yeah.
And then on the corner of West Wayne and Bloomingdale, that's a large condominium
Yes.
complex?
Yes.
All right, that's on that corner of Bloomingdale and West Wayne.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to show you what's also been marked as A9. It is the site plan for the property. And this is the site plan that's been marked as A9?
Yes.
Julian?
Yes.
Okay. And as you see in the zoning information, it is zoned R5, correct?
Correct.
And The proposed use is multiple dwelling.
Yes,
The lot size is 26,760 square feet.
correct.
And you're proposing 4 dwelling units, which require 21,780 square feet.
Yes,
So you're conforming as to the minimum lot size requirement.
yes,
You're showing on the plan parking for approximately, I believe, 10 vehicles,
yes,
8 in that lot, and there's approximately 2 in the front.
Yes.
10 vehicles.
Yes.
Again, you would require 2 parking spaces per unit, correct?
Yes,
You would
yes.
require 8. And as we mentioned before, you're not requesting any additions to this building,
no,
and you're not requesting any increasing impervious coverage.
no,
And actually, you do comply with the impervious coverage requirement of the zoning district.
yes,
And you comply with the building area requirement of the district,
yes,
where the permitted is 30% and you're at 10%.
correct.
On the setbacks, the front yard setback, the requirement is 50 feet, and you comply with that.
Yes,
The side yard setback is 30, and that's where we're non-conforming as to the side yard setbacks on both sides of the building.
yes, correct.
And one side yard setback is 28.6 feet, and that's the side yard setback that would be to the west, I guess, southwest.
Yes,
And then the other side yard setback is 11 feet, is that correct?
correct.
And the lot width, as we mentioned, your lot width for your lot is 80 feet,
Yes,
and 100 feet is required, correct?
correct.
The building height, we meet the building height requirement as it currently exists.
Yes,
And also the size of the building, regarding dimensions of the building, we meet that requirement as well.
correct.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add, I looked at the definition of land development and building in our code and conferred with the zoning, or with the township engineer, and it's our opinion, kind of looking at this again, that this probably would require land development, because it's involving more than 2 residential units, which creates an issue because this has not been in front of the planning commission. So any land development application that's going to require zoning hearing board relief needs to be in front of planning commission for review prior to coming to this board, so.
They make a
Counsel?
They make a recommendation. There's nothing, I know there's nothing in the MPC requiring it, and I believe it's not statutory. I think it's something.
It's in our zoning code that requires.
That's in the code. The question now, here, process question. The application was submitted. It was determined at that time, presumably, that the application did not need to go to planning first, did not involve Saldo. We find ourselves here this evening, and perhaps that determination is changing. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, I think initially it was on the applicant's, I guess, thought process that it did not require, so that issue was never raised with staff, and until it was just raised tonight.
Did the application indicate that the proposal was for 4 dwelling units?
It did, yes.
Yes.
So now focusing on the issue, it is the focus on the number of dwelling units that is leading to a contrary conclusion with respect to the need to go through land use,
Correct.
which means it needs to go to planning, which we have to wait.
Well, my thought, and if council wants to say that we can't do this, we can't do it, would be to complete hearing of the evidence and any public comment, continue the hearing until we get the feedback from planning, and then act on it.
Counsel, you want to confer with your client on that, or?
And I would prefer, if we do have to go to planning, at least to some extent, it looks like there's here who would like to speak too. I don't know if they would want to come back, and maybe it's better for everyone to finish the testimony, but still leave the record open, because obviously I may have to address some of the comments made by counsel.
Yeah, and what we have in front of us now may change after going, I mean, I don't know if it will or won't, but could change after a trip to planning.
Kevin, which section of the code is?
Give me a second.
So you'll continue the evidentiary hearing? You'll
Well,
keep the record open?
I would think that we would hear,
To make it clear.
we may need a, well, we can do it here, but
142B, Nick.
I think we hear everything subject to it changing, and we didn't have anything for January, now maybe we do. Well, no, what I'm saying is if we continue.
I'm saying,
Oh, right. Yeah. Let's take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you. Sure.
So is that, are we going to carry on?
We're just going to finish the, okay. Or, you know, we'll still have an opportunity because
We are back in session. I have broken my microphone since last we spoke. Let me level set for everybody to explain what's going on, why it seems like we've been spinning our wheels for the last 15 minutes, and then we can proceed. A question arose as to whether the proposal that's reflected in the application this evening requires review by the Planning Commission and satisfaction of land development requirements that exist here in the township. Where proposals of this sort also require zoning variances, the statute, the applicable code, excuse me, requires that the Planning Commission have the ability to review and make a recommendation to the Zoning Hearing Board with respect to the application that is presented. In fact, that was a part of, or one aspect of the first hearing of this evening, where the memorandum from the Planning Commission was entered into the record with respect to the earlier application. So before we as the Zoning Hearing Board are able to take definitive action on the application, we need to give the Planning Commission the opportunity to share its view of the application. Planning doesn't have to approve it, doesn't have to disapprove it, they don't have to say anything. They just have to be given the opportunity to take a look at it and weigh in should they choose to do that. So we're not this evening going to be able to reach a definitive determination of whether to grant the application that's in front of us. What we're likely to do, though, is to continue hearing evidence, to hear from members of the public who are here this evening who might choose to speak on the matter. And then what we will do is simply suspend proceedings. We will continue the hearing until such time as the Planning Commission has been given the opportunity to review the application and to provide whatever comment to us that it might choose to provide. So with that background, I again appreciate everyone's patience. Does the board have any questions?
John, I may have one little fly in the ointment. I'm looking at the definition of land development in the zoning code, and if you have that in front of you, it's in the definition section. And maybe we would just look through it to see if it
Is
really
that with an
does.
L?
Pardon?
It's with an L, land
with an L.
development? All right.
Maybe we would just want to look at the definition. I just looked at it quickly as you were talking and trying to determine whether this really is a land development. And it's under the definition section is L under 280-4, land development. It says the improvement of one lot or two or more contiguous lots, tracts, or parcels of land for any purpose involving a group of two or more residential or non-residential buildings. So we don't have two or more residential buildings that we're referring to here, and we don't have a non-residential building. So that one isn't applicable. Whether proposed initially or cumulatively, or a single non-residential building on a lot or lots, it's not a non-residential building, regardless of number of occupants or tenure, or the division or allocation of land or space, whether initially or cumulatively, between or among two or more existing or prospective occupants by means of or for the purpose of streets, common areas, leaseholds, condominium buildings, or other features. Now, it's not a condominium, it's an apartment, and I guess then it goes a subdivision of land, which this is not, and then other activities described in the MPC, which is basically, this does quote the MPC. I think this is basically language straight from the MPC. that's quoted in this section. So I guess the question is it a land development or not? And I'm not certain who makes that determination.
I think when we look at buildings, that each unit would be considered their own building. And I did hear back from the township solicitor, and he would also agree that it is land development.
John says everything's land development.
That's now also on the record.
Well, I've told him that, so it's okay.
I'm just looking at the MPC. Bear with
Sure.
me for a second.
It may be the exact language, I think. I'm not positive. Though.
So this raises a new issue that I didn't touch on in my earlier summary of how we got here. And that is, to the extent we accept council's argument that this does not constitute land development, we could proceed, and we could be challenged, and we could be shown to be wrong. And then anyone that contests our view can go to common pleas court.
I get it. Okay.
You get it?
I get it.
Do you wish to proceed?
We'll proceed, and then I'd like to hear comments, so we can address them, and then, we'll continue the hearing till next month.
With the applicant's consent.
With our consent. As long as we don't have to pay
I-
the $200 application fee or continue.
I want everyone up here to weigh in on whether to move forward.
Whether to move forward with to closure, or whether to move forward.
Well, if one were to adopt council's argument, we could
Right.
could make a determination this evening.
And I would agree with you that I'd rather not proceed on an uncertain question and leave ourselves open to challenge on that point. I mean, the implication is the delay that we're talking about. I still would rather proceed in the more cautious fashion.
I'm in agreement.
Yeah.
I have
We're-
no objection,
Yeah.
so.
So back to my earlier summary now. We're going to hear whatever remaining evidence there is to be brought forward. We will solicit comment from members of the public. We will then continue the hearing until a future date when planning is able to weigh in. But I do have a couple of questions. Mr. Sir, there will be 4 dwelling units, 1-bedroom apartments, 2-bed. I'm just trying to get a sense of the space and, frankly, the number of occupants and the potential traffic that we're talking about here.
4 units, 2 2-bedroom, and 2 1-bedroom.
Okay, and the parking requirements is two spaces per dwelling unit?
Correct.
Yeah.
Will there be limitations on tenants' ability to have more than a couple cars? I mean, you're
We do have
required
10
to provide
spaces.
8 spaces.
We have 10 that,
Y-
Okay.
Yes. I mean, we have room. We have 22 parking spots.
Okay. Yeah, I saw,
Oh, if you-
I
yeah,
saw
if you
8
went-
shown on the plan
Yeah,
and
we have-
some
do we
other
get-
spaces.
How do we get from 8 to 10 to 22?
no, I think he's talking about,
I've got 8 on one side, 8 on one, 8 on the other.
I don't know
That's-
if you have 8 on one side and 8 on the other.
Yeah,
Not
and
according to code, no. We have 10.
Okay, 10.
that's fine. In terms of the current use of the property, describe a typical day in terms of traffic, in terms of visitors to your location, in terms of deliveries. I'm trying to get a sense of whether the traffic or the general conditions of the area are going to be changed by reason of the change in use from a commercial to a residential establishment.
I have 1 or 2 clients coming in every day. I have 1 staff coming in on a regular basis, and I work from 7 in the morning till 8 at night. That's the volume of traffic, and I get the occasional delivery from UPS, and I have the regular mailman.
And the anticipated traffic of a residential location, I guess, depends on the mix of tenants, whether they're leaving in the morning, coming home at night, or maybe someone's retired and they just go from time to time across the day.
Correct.
Have you determined an intent to have this as a rental property as distinct from individually owned units?
It's going to be rental property.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thanks. Would any member of the public care to speak to the application that's in front of us at this time? Good evening.
Oh, sorry. I do. Baron Gemmer, B-A-R-O-N Gemmer. Thank you.
Baron, I know, are you guys of a party status or?
Yeah. Well, you want me to, I live
I
like,
know- well, I know-
we have a rental property 300 to 400 feet from this property.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep.
It's not, it can't be the general. I'll just preserve my right.
That's fine. We're going to
Yeah, well,
We're going to proceed with Mr. Gemmer as a party, subject to council's reservation of right to argue that.
and thank you. And I may limit my comments tonight based upon what going to planning and possibly change. So I'll be as brief as I can, understanding that we're not going to reach a decision tonight. First question I have is, or first issues I have is on the theory of the case, because I'm seeing special exception listed, and the only special exception listed under R5 are rooming house and student home, so I'm not sure how that would apply as one of the theories of the case here. Secondly is the 280-101B and C, because in the appeal, it specifies building and lot as an existing nonconformity, and I'm not seeing how either of those are nonconformities right now. The lot itself doesn't seem to be nonconforming, and the building meets all setbacks per valid uses within the district, so I'm not sure how that theory of the case would apply either. Back to the zoning ones, which I understand, the 280-35B1 and 280-35B3B in terms of the setbacks and lot width. In addition, the 10-yard, or excuse me, the fact that the side yards have to be 30 feet, one of the other requirements for a multi-dwelling use under R5 is a 10-foot buffer on each side, which must be landscaped, depending on what it abuts, landscaped for its full width, which would mean no asphalt, and it also has to have sufficient height in order to buffer it from the sides. Excuse me. The other thing here is forgetting, I assume we talked about the 8 parking here. The 2 parking here, well, the building meets the front.
I'm sorry, let the record reflect that that Mr. Gemmer is referring to, what's the number of that exhibit, please?
A9.
A9?
Yes.
Thank you, go ahead.
The building meets the 50-foot setback, but then because of the change in use or the proposed change in use to multifamily dwelling, the front yard setback becomes 50 feet. And give me 1 second, I'll give you the quote here for the, under the, I think it's 280-105 for parking. In R5, parking can't be in the front yard setback. So that would be additional relief that would be required.
Okay, is there any parking shown in the front yard setback? I believe there's a
Right.
paved area, but
Right.
Okay.
Yes, it's existing, but the setback under the existing use would have been a lower setback. So by changing the use, the setback increases, and therefore that parking would become in violation of the zoning code, because the setback changes based upon the use. I'll give you a second. Oh, thank you. So, okay. So in looking at this, yes, the lot area is where they meet the fact that they can do 4 times the 54,045 or whatever the square footage is. But it seems like everything else here, the side yard, the front yard, a lot of the other things don't meet the requirements here. And so, to me, the minimum, if they want to go from commercial to residential, that's fine, because it is R5. To me, the minimum relief here would be none, where it could go to a 2-unit rental or whatever he decides, because it meets the side yard. There, the side yards only have to be 10 feet. There's no buffering requirements. The lot width requirement is exactly 80 for a 2-unit. It goes up a little. It's 55 or 50, depending on the other ones, but it's 80 for a 2-unit. So it would meet that. So to me, that would, if they want to go to residential, the minimum relief required would be none, and just let them go to a 2-unit where it conforms with everything. Because the other thing is, I'm not sure, I know it's from a non-conforming use right now, but I didn't necessarily hear a hardship as to why, particularly if it goes the variance route, why this would be allowed or permitted.
Okay. Counsel, sorry.
Just, and I don't want to get it back and forth too much, but sort of to play devil's advocate. The distinction between the 2-unit and the 4-unit requirements are usually because it's anticipation of what a 2-unit would look like, what a 4-unit would look like, and the relative density. Here, where you have an existing building which isn't going to change, if they did a 2-unit, conceivably, it would be a 4-bedroom, because you would essentially have a much larger space. So you would have 2 4-bedrooms instead of 2 2-bedrooms and 2 1-bedrooms. And I guess I'm wondering how pushing to that change would have a substantive impact on the impact of the project to the community.
Yeah. Well, a part of it would be the more units you have, and I'll get to the bedroom issue, but the more units you have, obviously, part of the lot width is the frontage you have on the street if you do have overflow parking. So if you have 4 units as opposed to 2 units, and you have overflow associated with each unit, you've got a much smaller street area to be parking on, because that's where overflow is going to go. When you also go into higher bedroom situations like that, you're typically not actually, based upon the Radnor Code, particularly for student housing and non-related folks, you're not going to have 4 bedrooms where every one of those is a driver. That's typically going to have to be children of a family, where you're not impacting the traffic as much, because you're still just going to have perhaps the 2 cars associated with that, since you can't have more than 3 unrelated people renting in that before you run afoul of the student-type ordinances.
Your thoughts?
Okay.
Thank you. Counsel, any response to that?
Just quickly, Barron cites 36B. 36B refers to a buffer that directly abuts a residence area not devoted to apartment use in the district. This is an R5 zoning district. It abuts properties where the R5 apartment use is permitted in the zoning district, so the buffer area is not applicable. As to the parking, I can put a rule and see where that parking area is. It's pre-existing, it's been there for years and years and years. And even if it wasn't permitted, you have the required number of parking spaces, 8 parking spaces in the rear. So just as to those 2 items, I just draw the board's attention to it.
Do you want to address his hardship question?
As to the...
For the variance?
For the variance, it would be, you have an existing property here. You have an existing property that has existing setbacks. You have a provision in the code that already provides, that I cited here, the 101C, which talks about non-conforming lots and single and separate ownership, that they shall be considered as, they're allowed. So the only issue here We have an existing building that's non-conforming as a setbacks. We have a lot that's non-conforming, but since it predates zoning, was constructed prior to zoning in Radnor Township, it is allowed. So the issue here, I don't even think it's a hardship issue. I believe it's a special exception issue. Certainly, I agree. You know, we have a non-conforming use here, we're making it better. You're withdrawing a non-conforming use, you're making it a conforming residential use. Could we do 2 units? Yeah. Could we do 4 units? I think we can, you know, because it's a non-conforming situation.
At the risk of playing seesaw here,
Thank you. I appreciate it. Just a couple points with the buffer. It's, as Nick is reading, abuts a residential area, residence area not devoted to apartment use. It's not talking about the zoning, because all these can have apartment use. Apartment building is specifically within the definitions, but that would be the 4 or more situation. So this abuts a single-family home. The buffer would be required there. And I'll just leave it at that, since we're not going to reach a decision tonight. The other thing is, I'm still not clear how he's saying it's a non-conforming lot. I have seen no evidence that the building is non-conforming, nor that the lot is non-conforming.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comment from the public? Okay, seeing none, we will conclude for this evening. We will reconvene this hearing at such time as the Planning Commission has had the opportunity to consider the application and provide any comment on it. Other than that, I think we're done. Have a happy holiday season, and we'll see you maybe in January, maybe in February. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.